نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. فقال الله تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إن خير الهدي هدي محمد إن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, those of you who follow world news, and especially those of you who are here from the country of Pakistan, you know that on next Jummah at this time, people would be heading out to cast their ballots. And obviously, every election in every country, every town, every state, there's this promise of change, and there's hope. And all of these things are attached to that. And we're not going to be talking about Pakistan today. But the point that I'm trying to make is that there's a hope for change. There's a hope for change so that the corruption that diseases the Muslim world, not just Pakistan, can be at least reduced to a smaller level. And the people, the everyday people, could have relief. And on that note, before we even begin, let's make dua for all of the Muslims of the world, whether they're in Syria, or they're in Burma, or they're in Bangladesh, or any other Muslim country, wherever they're suffering from man-made causes or from natural causes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy on them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take care of their affairs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help them and support them against the oppressors. My dear brothers and sisters, as we hear about this election thing going on, what will happen, let's say there's some party out there who says, you know what, we're going to come in power and we are going to clean up this mess. Everyone will have to declare their assets. No politicians will be able to take all of these government favors and all of these things. And I'm sure a lot of you, from whatever other country you're from, you hear the same promises. What happens is that whichever party it is, even though they were making the promises, when they come in power, the leadership rules from the feedback of the people. And they have to always look at what kind of pushback they're getting. If they say, you know what, all the politicians have to declare their assets. They cannot have hidden assets. They came into government with $100 in their pocket, and now when they're finishing their term, they have $100 million. Where did that come from? Everyone has to declare that. If that happens, the government is looking to the people to support them. Any kind of good that happens at a major level, it has to come from the leadership. It has to come from the leadership, and it has to be supported by the regular people. All of us know this something very simple. And today we're talking about the idea and the concept of leadership in Islam, how it works, why it works, and what benefits it brings to the people. My dear brothers and sisters, all of us have a dream. If we are Muslim and we are mu'mineen, we love Allah and His Messenger, we have a dream. If we know anything about the Quran and Sunnah, we have a dream. And that dream is this place where we can live. This place which we can call our garden of Jannah on earth, which we can call our utopia. And all of us, I'm sure, some of us are imagining that. They imagined that from back home and they came to America where the problems they were facing were 100 times more, and over here they're only 20 times, for example, in different perspectives. And then we still have a dream where we can get to a place which is 100% Jannah on earth. Obviously that's not possible, but we have some guidelines which have been given. And the thing we look back to is the state of Medina in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. We look back to the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in. We look back to the time of the Khulafa al-Rashideen. And we say, you know what? I wish I could go back. Or I could go to a place and live in that land. Even if I have to survive on bread and water and dates, I'm willing to survive if I can go and live in a place like that. What type of place is this? There is little or no evil. No one can come out in public and be proud of doing evil acts. The least they can, the most they can do is to hide whatever they're doing in the compartments of their houses, and they cannot come out. Wouldn't we love to live in a place like that? Also, this place has Islamic laws and Islamic values. People don't steal. If people hit your car, they leave a note that I am the one who hit your car. Please call me and I will get this fixed. Right? This place, when you go to the shopping mall, you see the people stand in line because they know that we're not supposed to take away the right of another Muslim who was there first. Whenever they have garbage, they take it out. And even if they have to walk 2 blocks, they take it to the garbage dump and they throw it there. Why? Because they say, you know what? We were looking and we were making dua for this place for hundreds of years. Our previous generations were asking for this place, and now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this place. How thankful are we? So we're not going to break these rules. We're not going to hurt other Muslims. We're going to take this garbage and throw it all away in the garbage. Wouldn't we love to live in a place like that? This place would have no haram ads. The ads over there would be, have you read the Quran today? It would say, don't you know that this is sunnah to use atar? Use al-bakhur atar. It would be ads like these. Wouldn't we love to live in a place like that? There would be no haram-based banks. You could go to a bank and you could get a loan which is interest-free. You could invest in your businesses. You could buy cars. You could buy houses from an interest-free banking system. Wouldn't we love to live in a place like that? This place would also not have haram products selling. So the people who have to do business, they would not have to sell alcohol to make money. People would not have to buy haram cigarettes. There are no halal ones, so they have to sell cigarettes in order to make some money. They would not have to buy accessories to smoke drugs in order to make some money. They would not have to buy haram, they would not have to sell haram t-shirts in order to make some money. They would not have to put music in their stores in order to attract customers. Wouldn't we love to live in a place like that? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a place like that. Ameen. This place would be filled with the Muslim values, and that's why I call this place the Islamic utopia. This place is the dreamland for the Muslims. Wouldn't we love to live in a place like that? My dear brothers and sisters, before we get to that place, we have to go back to the original dreamland. We have to go back to the original dreamland and think about what sustained it and what destroyed it. We have to go back to the time of Medina, the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and study deeply what were the values, what were the actions of the people that allowed this place to come about. And what were the things that destroyed it? What were the things that destroyed it? When we have to learn from the history. We see that these people came together and they loved Allah and they loved His Messenger, and they tried their best to obey Allah and His Messenger. And automatically, because Islam is good, when people follow Islam, the society becomes good. And this society flourished. And there were good values. There was happiness. When a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would come down, people would immediately throw the alcohol in the streets. This was the environment. People used to come to the masjid and there wasn't enough space in the masjid. So people would stand without any room for sujood, and they would make sujood on the back of the person in front of them. When the Prophet ﷺ would finish the salah, they would be eager to sit and learn from him. They would ask him questions. Ya Rasulullah, what should we do in this situation? What should we do in that situation? They would come for Fajr. And they would ask the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, I want to come to the masjid. Can I move closer to the masjid? And the Prophet ﷺ would tell them, you have a masjid near your house, go there. But at the same time, those who do not have a masjid near their house, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever comes from the farthest distance has the most reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wouldn't we love to live in that Medina? How? The Prophet ﷺ started this place by the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu took over. And then Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu took over. And the place flourished even more and became purer and purer, because the policies that the Prophet ﷺ had put in place, they kept giving more fruits. They kept giving more fruits. It is as if there's dirty water. It is as if there is dirty water and you put 1 tablespoon of a purification of substance in there. And slowly it starts to clean the area around it. And then it spreads and it spreads. And the more time passes, the more of that water is clean. Eventually a time comes when the impurities are all condensed into a small object in the corner of the bin. My dear brothers and sisters, what led to the destruction of this society? The thing, if you study the history of Islam, the thing that led to the destruction of this society was a crisis in the concept of leadership and obedience. What happened? Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu had a strict personality. He wouldn't let you joke around. You don't play around with the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, if he sees you doing something which is out of the line, it's not out of the line now, but 10 years down the road it would be out of the line, he would stop you now. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu as a shaheed. And then Uthman radiallahu anhu took over. And Uthman radiallahu anhu had a very soft personality. And he was a person who liked to let go. Not to let go of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he would say, you know what, there's no need to punish you if you understand that what you're doing is wrong. And he was nice, and the people were happy. But then 7 years passed. 2 years after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the time of Abu Bakr. Then about 10 years in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, that's 12. Then 7 years in the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, that's 19 years. For 19 years there are no problems. So now these people, the shaitan that's in them, is saying, there are no problems. Life is boring. So go and create problems. And Uthman radiallahu anhu was the Amir for 14 years. The first 7 years were the years like Umar radiallahu anhu. And in the second 7 years, the problem started. People went around and they started talking bad about Uthman radiallahu anhu. And this started the fitna. This started the fitna that ended up in the murder of Uthman radiallahu anhu. It ended up in the murder of Ali radiallahu anhu. This was the same crisis that was started at that time that led to the killing of the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Al-Husayn radiallahu anhu. Many Sahaba were killed as a result of the fitna that was started from people who did not want to obey their leader, who did not want to listen to Uthman radiallahu anhu. He would try to bring them and answer their questions, but they'd say, no, okay, we're fine, they have no answer. And then they go back and they start creating lies again. My dear brothers and sisters, this problem, as we said, started because of disobedience to the ruler. Whether it's a ruler in a political system on a nation level, or these same problems happen when there is disobedience to the leadership. Think about a business. Many of you are business owners. Can you imagine if there wasn't any one person who had the last word on everything? Everybody that works there, 7 people work there, all of them are equal. One says, hey, you know what, we need Verizon. The other one says, no, we need Comcast. And then what happens? Problems happen. And that's why Islam placed a heavy emphasis on this concept of leadership, which is Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasula wa ulil amri minkum. O you who believe, obey Allah, obey His Messenger and those in authority over you. If it's your college MSA and you have an Amir, you have a president, you have to listen to him. You work in a business, you have to listen to your boss. In a house, the wife and the children have to listen to the father. Otherwise, the system does not work. In the same way, my dear brothers and sisters, in our masajid, in our Muslim organizations, in our small Muslim communities, in our towns, then in our states, and then in our countries, we have to understand this idea that whoever is in charge, we have to listen to them. We have to listen to them. And the reason why I started with this election, that imagine this party that's making all of the promises comes in power, and they say, you know what, we want you all to pay taxes. Why? Because the country needs money. Would we listen? Would we listen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us many guidelines when it comes to this idea of leadership. The Prophet ﷺ has mentioned in many ahadith that the command of the Amir is binding upon us, regardless of what level it is. The Prophet ﷺ even said, if 3 of you are traveling, do what? Appoint one of them as the Amir. Do you know that when 2 police officers, you don't have 2 police officers here, but in New York City, every cop car has 2 police officers. And the one who's driving, he is the one who is in charge of the other. Meaning, if they disagree, the one who is driving will make the final call. Because they knew that it cannot be. It would be detrimental to the whole system if both of those people did not have to listen to each other. Obviously, he can advise him. He can tell him the facts that he doesn't know, but at the end of the day, the one who is the leader has the last call. This is something very important. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the one, I'm not sure if this is a hadith, but it is a well-known statement that the one who does not have a leader, his leader is shaitan. The one who does not have a leader, his leader is shaitan. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who is traveling alone, he is a shaitan. The 2 people who are traveling, they are shaitanan, they are 2 shayateen. The 3 who are traveling is a jama'ah. Now they're okay. Now they're in a group. Islam, my dear brothers and sisters, it prefers order and it does not prefer chaos. It does not prefer chaos. Why? Because if you look at the history of Islam, from day one, you look at the history of Islam until today, every time there was stability of leadership, Islam flourished. Islam flourished. Look at all of the books that we have here in the masjid. Do you think they were written when Baghdad was being attacked? Do you think they were written when the Mongols were coming and destroying the Muslims? Do you think the books that were written from Muslim Spain, they were written when Queen Isabella and Ferdinand were coming and attacking the Muslims? No. They were all written. That knowledge flourished when there was stability. You know what the Muslims did was that they first, when they received the Quran and Sunnah, they developed on it. Many sciences came. Then they didn't have anything else left. Then they started focusing on worldly knowledges, worldly sciences. And they worked on that and they became the best in that. Then they ran out of stuff. So they went to other cultures like Greeks and Romans, and they started translating their books and bringing them into the Islamic culture and learning from them. This was all in the time of stability. That's what happens in stability. We need stability in order for Islam to flourish. The Amir is a shield for its followers. The Amir, whoever the Amir is, he's a shield for the followers. They are protected by him from the outside and from the inside. Because what happens, as you know, the famous strategy of divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. Look at how the British Empire managed to break away the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Khilafah, the Uthmani Khilafah, was there for hundreds of years. And then they said, you know what, we cannot fight them, no way. So they sent undercover agents. They sent them to the Arabs. And they said, you know what, you have Makkah, and you have Medina. Why do you have to follow these non-Arabs? Break away from them. Fight them. And that's what happened. One state left, another state left, another state left, and that's how they broke them up. That's how they destroyed them. Took away the strength that came from the Jama'ah. And that's how they were able to conquer and destroy them completely. Do you know that in the Uthmani Khilafah, they were completely abolished in 1924. Do you know, in just a few years before that, the British went to Sultan Abdul Hamid II. And they said, hey, we'll give you any amount of money that you want. Give us the land of Palestine. Sell it to us. Any amount of money you want, we'll give it to you. And what did Sultan Abdul Hamid II say? They were very weak at this time. They were called the sick man of Europe. They were about to be destroyed. They were about to fall, but they hadn't fallen yet. And what did Sultan Abdul Hamid II say? He said, I'd rather have a part of my body, flesh from my body cut, instead of the land that the Muslims fought for and died for. How can I give you this land when it doesn't belong to me? And they never dared to do anything against that land until this Khilafah wasn't there anymore. And then they came back. And as you know, then they did everything they wanted to do. There was no stopping them. That's how the Muslim dynasty, the Muslim societies were destroyed. Do you know that until the colonial times, when the British came and basically infiltrated the lands of the Muslims, there was no such thing as a Muslim community living amongst non-Muslims. There was no such thing. It never happened before the colonial times. The Muslims used to live separately in places where they had Muslim values. They had Muslim banks. They had Muslim ads. Everything was Muslim. And the non-Muslims lived separately. They had their own towns. They had their own villages. They never mixed as communities until the colonial times. And that all flourished recently. So my dear brothers and sisters, think about how important leadership is in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, when he passed away, his body was not buried. His body, the blessed body of the Prophet ﷺ, was not buried until the Sahaba came together and decided upon who the next leader is going to be. When Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu was stabbed, he chose 6 people. He chose 6 people who were given the glad tidings of Jannah, and the 7th was his son, who was not allowed to be chosen as the Khalifa, to break the tie. He put guards around them. I think 70 guards, something like that. He put guards around them, and he said, all of these, they must choose a leader amongst themselves. If they do not do so in 3 days and 3 nights, kill them all. Kill them all. Why? Because look at the wisdom of Umar radiallahu anhu. All of these were leaders. All of these had flourished in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and learned from him. And they were all capable of being leaders. If they all did not agree upon one leader amongst themselves, then every one of them will claim to be leader afterwards. And there would be fitna. And they would fight amongst themselves. And that's why he said, if they do not choose one amongst them, kill them all. And they picked Uthman radiallahu anhu. So my dear brothers and sisters, the Prophet ﷺ gave us a lot of lessons. He did not leave us without guidance. You know, who does the Amir have to be? Does the Amir have to be, the leader have to be the most pious man on earth in order for us to obey him? No. Even if he is a person who drinks alcohol, if he commits zina, and the people know that, they still have to obey him as long as he doesn't command them to do something haram. If he commands them, you must stop at red lights, you must stop at red lights. Now it is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how order happens. This is how order comes and chaos leaves. The Prophet ﷺ, to teach the people about leadership, he even put some of the young Sahaba as amirs of armies, when amongst them were very old and knowledgeable companions like Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhu. They were in those armies as followers of these young kids. But the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever obeys my Amir has obeyed me. And whoever has obeyed me has obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters, each and every single one of us is ready to step up and say, I will be the Amir. Every one of us has fantasized that, you know, if I was the president of this masjid, this is what I would do. Every one of us, probably. But no one here, or most of us here, are not ready to be followers. And we have not learned to be followers. And we have no desire to be followers. How can we be the leaders when we don't know how to be followers? And this is exactly what happened. A man came to Ali radiallahu anhu, and he wanted to kind of insult him. And in that time, a lot of fitnas came. And he said to Ali radiallahu anhu, he said, how come in the time of Umar, Abu Bakr and Umar, there was such good times, there was peace and tranquility. And in your time, all of these fitnas are going. You know what Ali radiallahu anhu said? He said, because in their time, I was their soldier. And in my time, you are my soldier. Brothers and sisters, we have to learn to train to be followers. Look at the leadership. This is how Islam has given us. If we follow any other way, we would not be guided. We would not be successful. We would not be successful in this dunya. We would not be successful in the akhirah. There are many other things that that I had in my list, but I didn't even get through too much. Why? Because this idea is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And most masajid, I'm sure a lot of you go to a lot of other masajid as well. And the most problems that are caused in most masajid are caused because of lack of proper leadership and lack of proper following. We have to understand that we will not always be the leader ourselves. Sometimes you will be the leader. Sometimes you won't be the leader. But we have to understand that whether we like the guy or not, once there is someone that people agree to be the leader, now we have to obey him. And the Prophet ﷺ, look at what he said. He said, if this is him describing the lowest of the society of that time. He said, if an Abyssinian slave, first of all, people generally look down upon the Abyssinians. Then they definitely looked upon slaves. look down upon slaves. He said, if an Abyssinian slave whose head is like a dried raisin, meaning from your standards, he is the ugliest person that's on earth. Even if he becomes your leader, you must obey him. So think about everything else. My dear brothers and sisters, this is something that we need to really think about. We need to take some time out for ourselves and say, you know what? Am I ready to be a follower? If you can be ready to be a follower, then inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring upon you leaders, will bring upon us leaders who will guide us in the straight path, who will take us whole hand in hand to the straight path. And if not, Shaitan will be our leader. And he will come and he will break away people. He will break away people one by one. You know what? This masjid does not listen to your ideas. How about you go and open up a new masjid? Shaitan got you. And anyone who comes with these ideas, he is misguided. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. If you don't, Shaitan comes to people and say, you know what? This masjid doesn't listen to your ideas. You should stop coming here. Shaitan got you. You know what? This masjid has too much multiculturalism. You know, they have Arabs here, they have Pakistanis here, they do other things, we do other things. You know what? I'm going to prevent my family from going to the masjid. Tell my kids, don't go to the masjid. Shaitan got you. Think about this. This is a problem, believe it or not, that many people have. That this masjid is not like us. This is not the way that we like it to be. You know, the problem is that each and every single one of us have kids in schools. And there's more multiculturalism in school than we have in the masjid. And we are okay with that. We work in places where people do crazy, stupid things which are not part of our culture, and we are okay with that. We ride in buses and trains where people do things that we don't like, and we are okay with that. And we are nice and kind about it. But the same things happen at the masjid. A lot lesser degree. And they are halal. They are from the sunnah. It's just a different hadith that we didn't know. And we say, you know what? This masjid is not for us. So we're going to stop. Break away from the jama'ah. My dear brothers and sisters, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. What does that mean? The saved sect. The Prophet ﷺ said that 73 sects will break up from this ummah. Only all of them are in fire except for one. The saved sect. And how did he describe it? He said these are Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Meaning these are people who follow what I brought. And they do not differentiate. They do not separate. That's why the opposite of that is Ahlul Sunnah. The term that the scholars coined was Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The people who follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ wal Jama'ah. And they stick together. They stick together. Think about this, my dear brothers and sisters. Just coming to Jummah is not enough. Just coming to Jummah is not enough because you're not part of the Jama'ah that way. Just coming to Eid is not enough. Praying 5 times at home, if you are a man, is not enough. I have a hadith here, but I don't have time to share them. That praying 5 times at home is not enough. I have a list of 19 pages sitting on my desk in the office. 19 pages about the importance of attending salah in the masjid. And amongst them, the top of them, is the Prophet ﷺ wishing to burn the houses of the people who the salah is going on and they are sitting at home. My dear brothers and sisters, the masjid is there for you to come and attend. The programs that we do, they're there for you to attend. And for your families to attend. We have programs that we start. We have a program on Saturday. And we have a small number, but all of these people here, I don't see you there. What's the reason? I can understand you work on Saturday. I can understand you work at Isha time. But what about Fajr? Maybe you do the night shift and you work at Fajr time. What about Isha time? What about Dhuhr? What about Asr? What about Maghrib? Dear brothers and sisters, do not let Shaitan play you. This is not a land. This is not a place. This is not a time when we can survive on our own. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Subhanallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu.